Welcome to Artists Supporting Artists. I'm Iz, an artist on a mission to speak to all kinds of people about their creative journey. On this week's episode, I'm speaking to the lead singer of the Bournemouth-based band SOS, Joshua Vaughan, also known as JV, or as I like to call him, my brother. We cover all kinds of topics like how he got into music, what he had to do to get into SOS, and what happens when you leave a band that you create to join another one. It's pretty good stuff. So, let's get into it. Hello!
Hello.
You alright?
I am fine, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
Okay, we'll just crack straight onto it.
Let's go.
First question is, what would you say that creativity looks like to you?
It's a difficult one. I think creativity is doing something that takes you out of your normal life and puts you in a place where you can explore explore emotions and explore things that you wouldn't normally be able to explore. In a conversation or something like that. It allows you to access a different part of your being, in a sense, which is quite deep, isn't it? But, that's what I think it probably is.
Well, I mean, it is deep, but also a big thing about creativity, I would say, is like being vulnerable. So, it is just deep.
Yeah, definitely agree. I mean, as I say, especially as a man, sometimes you can't you can't speak out necessarily what you would want to and say what you need to say all the time. So having a medium to convey those emotions sometimes is really handy to have. But yeah, so that's what I think creativity
100%.
is. And I think it's not just creativity isn't just art or music or stuff like that. I think you can be creative in anything. If you're a coder, for example, you can be a creative coder. Do you know what I mean? That's the way that they express themselves by doing that sort of thing. So I think creativity comes in loads of different shapes and forms and stuff, and it's not just in the art department, if you will. There's creativity in everything, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason why I've got so many different kinds of people coming on, because it's not just if you paint, you're an artist. Creativity does develop in so many different forms that I wanted to kind of cover a lot of the bases, and maybe somebody would reach out and be like, I think I'm creative, and they're a coder or they're a chef or something like that. And it's about, because like you say, creativity comes in all different shapes and forms, and I think people will need to remember that you don't have to be talented in a stereotypical sense to be able to have creativity.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a big thing, that everybody, whatever walk of life you're in, you can be creative within that. It doesn't have to be an art medium, as I say, that you use. It could be any kind of medium.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just go back to the beginning. It will be interesting because obviously I probably do think that I know a lot of it.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to hear. How did you get into music?
It's a long story. Since I was a little boy, my parents and grandparents and everyone like that has always been in music and in barbershop choruses and quartets and stuff. And sister, yeah. I mean, you were for a little bit, but that's a tiny little blop on history. So basically started there. At 8 years old, I joined a barbershop chorus with my dad, granddad, and uncle. And from there, got on stages all around the country. Did a couple of little trips abroad with it as well. Got a little bit of a bug for performing. It's a different type of performing, because you've got, obviously, there was at the height maybe 50 or 60 different men just all stood up there at the same time. But me being the youngest, it was always kind of there was kind of a focus on me from some points. So that's how I started. And then in terms of the music where I am now, that does play a huge part of it, because a lot of our stuff, we have harmonies and whatever. So my musical foundation came definitely from that. But to get into being a musician in a sense of not just performing with a big group of people, but actually becoming my own, showing my own creativity and stuff, that's probably started when I was about 12 or 13. And Dad showed me 2 songs, which I remember. It was Poison by Alice Cooper and Battle of Hell by Meatloaf. And that blew my mind. We were in the kitchen and it blew my mind. And I was like, oh, what is this sort of music? And he was like, this is rock music, son. And so I sort of started exploring that avenue. And then I really got into Jason Mraz for a while. He's the singer-songwriter, guitar
I
guy.
remember.
And I
I
had all the
remember you with
fedoras.
your and I remember you with your XC90, your Sony Ericsson.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh no, your Sony Ericsson, what was it?
Flip phone, yeah.
The black
Orange
and
one.
orange one.
Yeah.
And you like Bluetoothing the I'm Yours song to like everybody after school.
Yeah, that's what got me into it. It was weird. I remember from that I don't know why, but I really enjoyed that song, and I really liked the guitar and stuff. And so I had a guitar in the loft because I was doing guitar lessons maybe at the age of like 9 or 10 with my mate Tom's dad at the time. But I never really got into it. I did like 2 or 3 lessons, and I was never sort of bothered by it. So the guitar went into the loft, and I pulled that guitar back down and started getting hooked on it. And as I say, I unfortunately went down the route of buying a lot of fedoras, and one was a leather one as well, and sort of got into that
Yeah.
singer-songwriter place. So I was doing singer-songwritery stuff for a while because I used to play piano as well, but I didn't like the lessons because I didn't like getting told you have to practice. I definitely was more of I'll practice in my own time. And then I suppose it came to a point whereby I was like, okay, I'm done with acoustic music and I want to start playing music. Like, I was a massive Guns N' Roses fan, a big Slash fan. And so I was given one Christmas a Toys R Us kit. I think you got it at the same time. The guitar and the amplifier.
I got a pink one, yeah.
You got pink one, I got the blue one. Yeah, and then started playing that. And I probably played guitar about 7 hours a day. I would wake up in the morning before school and play about 2 hours before school. And then as soon as I got home from school, I'd just sit in my room playing the guitar the whole time. So that's how I got into that. And then, yeah, just got into bands and stuff and just haven't given up that childhood dream, really. And it's got me to being nearly in my 30s and still in bands. So that's it. We're still in a band. That's
Yeah.
it. So, yeah. But yeah, no, that's
There you
a
go.
sort of very compressed, very quick fire story of the progression from a little boy on a stage in Amsterdam, not in Amsterdam, but in Holland on a in a barbershop chorus to playing in a rock band, pop rock, really.
Yeah, well, tell me more because you've been in two, I mean, yeah, two forms of band.
Yeah,
You started yourself,
yeah,
and then one that you went into. Um, so I just want you to tell people about, your input because you were, a big driving force in your first band,
mm.
and how it feels now to have, a different band and how that's changed your mentality towards everything.
Yeah. So the first band that I was in, basically the whole band was just me and my mate Tom, and we'd had different lineups throughout the years, and even until maybe I think it was 2 or 3 years ago we were running that band, and I had a lot of control over that band. That's what I'd say. As well as input, I'd had a lot of control. And at times it was difficult. Most of the time it was difficult. But most of the time also I found that it was also difficult letting anyone else in to have any creative input because I was such a perfectionist and stuff that I wanted to do. But then, as I say, we got to a point whereby I think Tom will agree that our music got a bit stale. Our creativity definitely got stale. And the band was going through another lineup change. And at this point, it was probably like 3 or 4 lineup changes in its lifetime. So by that time, you started to get to a point whereby it's a new band, you know what I mean? And it's just carrying on the old name just to keep the followers and keep the notoriety in the local area. So when this next band, I had always known of Saints of Sin, which were the band. I'd always known about them when I lived here in Bournemouth, and they were kind of this upper echelon of local bands. They were the tier above, or a couple tiers above us. They were playing festivals, local festivals that we just couldn't get a sniff in. We were like, for example, a big festival around here is called Teddy Rocks, and we, as Capulus, applied so many times. We went through so many competitions to try and get on the stages and stuff, through the Vocal Zone stages. Vocal Zone, which are like the Throat Lozenge, they have a stage there.
Mm-hmm.
And it just would never get anywhere with it. And then I always knew that this band would play in those sort of places. They were sponsored by Vocal Zone, sponsored by EMG Pickups. They're sponsored by, loads of different, different things. As I say, they were this bigger band. And when they advertised that they needed a new vocalist, it was a moment for me to say, I was kind of had the devil and the angel on my shoulder in a sense, because it wasn't really that. It kind of two thoughts went through my mind. One was, if I was to do this, I might not get it, and if I don't get it, then it's going to be really awkward because the band aren't going to be happy with me trying it for other bands, and it's going to ruin the relationship with the band as it is. And obviously, if I was to get it, then I would have to seriously consider which band I prioritize, and therefore my personal attachment with Tom might be in jeopardy and stuff like that. So, but then the other side of me was saying, if I don't do this, then am I going to regret it forever? Because it could be an opportunity for me to progress my music career and stuff. So I went for it, and basically, as soon as we turned up at the practice, it was like I'd known these guys for years. It was the strangest experience. Like, they say this when you're meeting like prospective partners, like when they talk about that, they're like, oh, I felt like I'd known them for years when we first started talking. It was literally like that. It was the weirdest thing. They came from a similar background as me, but up here in Bournemouth rather than down in Devon. So we just got on like a house on fire, and I just went into this sort of like audition, if you will, which it was, just with the most hyped energy, jumping around, running around like some sort of young blood on crack or something. But yeah, and they just loved the energy. Do you know what I mean? And then I had to go through 13 gigs or 14 gigs worth of probation, which included a tour of Scotland, which was my first ever tour. It was a 3-day stint, which went from Bradford to Edinburgh to Glasgow in 3 days, and play gigs there. And then it got to a point where they said to me, okay, yeah, we're going to take you on. It was a long slog. It was months and months and months and months of constant critique, but in a good way as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was a constant, like, oh, you need to do this better before you're joining. But I think it's affected me a little bit as a person, slightly. But I think in the long run, it's a benefit. But it definitely made me question a lot of things at the start.
It's just like a bit of an ego hit, right? Like, you just have to swallow your pride a little bit, and you just have to be like, oh, actually maybe you're not as good as you thought you were, but like, your way that you were doing things, sometimes, it's not bad and it's not wrong, it's just a different way that they wanted you to do it. So, and then they just steered you in the right direction.
I think there was two sides of the coin. I think, there's that I needed the progression, in a sense. I know now, looking back on it, that I was nowhere near as good as I am now, and in a sense I needed that. And I think they also felt like they had one shot at this, and they needed to make sure, because on a personal level and on a performance level, they were, at the start, they were more of a personal level. They were, really happy with me. They thought that was amazing, whatever. But they thought that, this is their one shot at it. If they're going to do it, they need to do it properly. So that came with its own challenges, in a sense. And I think if they were to go back now, they would do it slightly differently, because I think they could see how it affected me as a performer, and as an individual. But I think, sometimes the tough love is kind of the best medicine, because it has made me so much better than I've ever been. But on the other hand, it has given me a whole different set of, like, not problems, but self-criticism that I would never normally
Complexes.
have. Yeah, exactly that. Complexes. But so that's the thing. It was one of those things, but I wouldn't change it, because it's helped me to get where I am now. And with the other band, I just had to say, look, let's go on a hiatus for a time being, and we'll maybe pick it back up again. And then when I realised that, this band, SOS as it was now, was kicking off a bit more, I said to them, look, I said to Tom, basically, use all of the social media, all of the stuff, all the money that we had or whatever, carry on the project. You could rename the project and bring new people in. And I think that it was one of those feast or famine kind of things, whereby he realised that if he was going to keep up and be able to play music to the level that we were even playing as Capulus, that he'd have to change the way that he works. And it's developed him so much as a musician, and it's developed me so much as a musician, so much more than we would ever have got if we were just in the same project. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to sacrifice the young child to create. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. That's we had to sacrifice our
Yeah, 100%.
baby to benefit our future growth in the music side of things.
And something that's amazing is that it hasn't, in the long term, really affected your relationship. Up until a few months ago, you were still living with each other, and you still
Yeah,
see,
yeah. He
the
comes to
members
every
of the
gig.
band. So like, it's not, yeah, and and that is amazing to see whenever I'm there and he's there, and he's just so supportive, and like now he's gone and he's now in his own band, and that's able to be his creative outlet, and it's not changed. He's still, he's going to be your best man. Like he's not.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
not
That's
really
the thing.
changed anything.
No, no, no. I said at the start, I think there was a slight envy there, which obviously there would be because I would have been envious as well in the sense that, as
Yeah.
I say, we weren't able to get on these stages. And next minute, I'm playing on these massive main stages in front of 500-600 people. The first gig I did was in front of
Mm.
like 500 people, and I could see how that would have felt unfair in a sense. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah, of course.
it's
Yeah.
one of those things. But as I said, I spoke to him again about it this couple of weekends back when we were in Bristol at a gig, and it was like he agrees that without it, it wouldn't have pushed him to where he is now. And so again, that needs that has something to
Yeah.
say about that in terms of you need to have that element of envy slightly to push yourself a bit further forwards because you want to be like, oh, I want to be like them,
Yeah,
so I'm going
driving
to do this.
force.
Yeah, definitely.
So with that, I think you've probably covered it. But what would you say has been your biggest learning experience?
Yeah, I think that in a sense, the 13 or 14 gigs that I've done, I did with them on a probation period.
Hmm.
Definitely the tour uh, of Scotland gave me a learning curve in terms of learning how to pace myself because the first night was all right actually. We were in Bradford, and then the second day was going really swimmingly in Edinburgh, and then we decided to go out because we'd had such a good gig. Because we did two gigs in Edinburgh. We did two 45-minute sets in this place called Whistle Binkies, which was a great little venue. And then decided to go out, and we were out until 4:30 in the morning, and we had to leave at 6 to go to the next place, to go to Glasgow to perform. I think we were performing at like 4 in the afternoon or 3 in the afternoon, and it was this beautiful sunny day in beautiful Scotland, with the rolling hills, and it was amazing. And then we
Hmm.
get to this place in Glasgow, and it's like, oh, you're going into this dingy pub underground with all these sweaty, smelly men that had been there at this
Mm.
festival for 3 days. And I just got in there, and I just felt like, oh, what is the point of this? And I just, I felt awful. My voice was awful because I just was
Yeah.
dehydrated from the long night and the alcohol consumption, um,
Hmm.
and got through the set. Had to drop one song at the end because I was just like, "There's no way we're going to do this," and thought that I'd messed up the whole thing. I thought, look, this is it. I ruined my chance because they're going to see that I couldn't do the 3 gigs. But anyway, we actually got some really good feedback from that gig because we were a bit heavier because I was a bit more croaky and stuff. So a lot of it was a bit more
Yeah.
screaming. Um, and they seemed to enjoy it. And then the boys were like, "Yeah, it is what it is." We went too hard, but we learned from that, and then made the same mistake when we went to Germany. But it wasn't too bad because we'd we paced ourselves in a sense and kind of practiced a little bit more in terms of doing gigs after long nights and stuff like that. But yeah, we've had a
Yeah.
few gigs like that whereby we played a gig in Blackpool, and then we went out and then got back into the flat at like 5 in the morning, and we were up at 6 to go back to then play another gig here in Bournemouth. And the gig was a private birthday party for this girl. And when I tell you it was the worst gig of my life, it was the worst gig of my life. There was like 3 people there. Like we were in this massive restaurant and we'd set ourselves up. We were hanging, and she'd paid us a bunch of money to play this gig. And she paid, and we were playing this gig, and there was literally just our partners on the dance floor, and the rest of the people were sitting just eating like roasts and stuff. And
Oh
then
my
there were just
God.
kids walking by with their fingers in their ears, and I was like, oh, I do not. And we're quite an energetic band, getting down and into the crowd and stuff. But yeah, that day was just like we just got to knuckle down, just play the gig, get the money, and go. And it was kind of one of those things. But
A bit
it
like
reminded us
that.
not
You
to do it
did that
again.
wedding as well, didn't you? And
Yeah,
that
we
was
did
a
a
bit like that.
yeah we did a wedding as well, but that was more of like an acousticy thing. That one was just it wasn't organized very well. We had no idea what was going on. We played the first.
Yeah.
We played it down the aisle, and then we're meant to play apparently back up the aisle again, but we weren't told that, so we had to just improvise. And then we played the first dance, but the musical elements were fine with that. But the problem was like we then became the DJs for the day and the Toastmasters and stuff, which wasn't really what we were meant to do. And we were told we had a open bar and an open tab, and then about 4 hours in, we got told to stop. But never mind.
Okay. And what would you say has been your biggest triumph? Like not just with the band, but like within your creative journey?
I think when I looked at these questions the other day, I said that my creative triumph is just every day that I go and perform, and I can see that I'm getting better. There's not a single moment where I'm like, oh, I've made it. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the first time that I played with the boys, and we played Poole Harbour Festival, and there was like, as I say, 500 people in the tent or something crazy like that. And then at the end of it, they were like, oh, you need to come and do the signings now. And there was like a queue out of the door for the signing tent. Like, that was a moment where I had to sort of take a second because I was not used to it. So that was a kind of like a triumphant I made it moment in a sense. And then, you know, we've played some amazing venues. Like we recently just played the Guildhall again in Portsmouth, which is like an unreal venue in terms of the stage size, the people that have played there, like the actual building itself. If I was a kid and said to myself, oh, you're going to play that, I would have given my left arm. So it's one of those things that you don't appreciate it in the moment, and essentially like, oh, I'm here, you know, the sound guy's being annoying or whatever it is, and you don't take those moments to be like, oh, I'm actually doing it. So it's a difficult one. The triumphant aspect of it is here and there, but every single day I think is just a good one. I think just knowing that I've done better, because I'm very self-critical. So anytime that I think, oh, that was actually all right, then I'm like, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Like bank that.
Because that's the next question is, you know, what something that you struggle with.
Yeah, so that's I kind of touched on it already. Is my kind of self-criticism now that's come in because of the intense scrutiny that came from the audition process. It's one of those things whereby I kind of, even if I was to have the best gig ever and everyone was to say, oh, you know, that was amazing and we loved it, you did so well, I can't watch the videos back sometimes. I do, and I have to, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I know what's going to happen, because I'll hear stuff that people won't even notice. Do you know what I mean? Like there'll be slight, like we're talking like semitones, not even a semitone, like a slight flatness or a slight sharpness to a note, and I'll be like, ruined it. Like, what am I doing? Whereas I don't take, you know, I take a critique because of all the stuff you see on social media of these people that are so highly produced. Even on their live videos, they're run through, you know, doors, and they're done properly, and they're edited, and they're pitched, and they're tuned and stuff like that. And then they put them out as the live recordings. You watch those things, you think, how the hell can I be like that?
Yeah,
And you look
somebody
at yourself,
running around a stage and barely even having, you know, a
yeah,
shortness of breath.
yeah, that's the thing. And it's kind of one of those things whereby it is one of those, I'm getting better at it, definitely, in terms of not being so critical and being so nasty to myself, but I do still struggle with it. I can't watch myself back and be like, everyone will say, oh, you know, it was a great gig, blah, blah, I loved it. And in the moment, those people are loving life. Like, they're not caring, because, and even on the people that listen back to the songs and the stuff online and the live videos, it's not like they're listening in and going, oh, he was flat there or whatever. Do you know, like everyone has moments.
No one's doing that.
No, but for me, I'm like, I want to be the best of the best, and I want to be right up there in terms of never messing up, which is completely unreasonable. It's never going to happen. But it's, again, a double-edged sword. It's self-critical, and it causes me a lot of inner problems sometimes, but also it's pushed me to progress myself in a sense, because I know that the only way that that's going to happen, I can't rely on any third party input. It has to be me practicing and me putting the time in. And so I'll literally stand in the corner here with the cupboard open and sing most days into the cupboard, because it's like a soundproof vocal booth then, and my neighbours don't get to hear me, because some of the music that I sing is let's say less than pleasant on the ears if I was screaming it out at 9 o'clock at night. So, but yeah, it's one of those things, just push me to practice more, pushes me to perform better. And again, it's just gig after gig after gig. It's one of these things as well whereby I haven't actually played that many gigs and done that many tours as a musician of this level. Do you know what I mean? Like, these guys have played for so long to get to this point, and then I kind of been dropped into this area. And sometimes I think they forget that, and sometimes I think I forget
that you're still learning.
Yeah, because also at the same time, like, I used to feel at the start that I was musically below them in terms of ability and stuff. Now, I don't feel that at all. I feel like, I'm right at the top with all of them. Like, we're all the same. But again, I think there is elements whereby we need to get more gigs under the belt, which we're getting. And every time we play a gig, it gets better and better and better. And us as musicians together get better. So it's just keep carrying on and stuff like that, and try and not get too down if something goes wrong, and just sort of pick myself up again and say, you just got to get on and crack on. Because at the end of the day, even if I have an absolutely awful gig and I fall over and, my voice breaks and I can't sing anymore, the people that are there watching it, a few people will say about it, but at the end of the day, after about a week, a month, a year, they'll forget about it, and just got to keep cracking on.
But I think you are better now, I think, with it. You need to, because the first time that I saw you at Paul Harbour was the second year that you played. And I remember then you were so down after the gig, and talking to you, and you're like, oh, this went wrong and this went wrong and blah, 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 blah. Everyone was saying, well, that's ridiculous. But that's just, that's how you felt, and, that's fine. And, you hold yourself at such a high standard, which is obviously what makes you so good. And then with, when I was home last and I was watching you play, you'd be like, yeah, that was good. Like, with the EP launch and stuff, like, you were more positive about it. And I think that's not just because, you've grown within the band, but it's just because you're able to, like, just be kinder on yourself, I think.
Yeah, and present in the moment a little bit, that's the thing, and enjoy the seconds. Because, as I say, I play these, it comes to fruition when it gets to, like, January, February, because we're definitely more of, like, a festival summer band. So, like, as we come into the season now, we're really busy. But when it gets sort of like January, February, March, we have a very big lull. And there's this sort of stop in us performing, in a sense, because everyone does. It's just the music industry. It stops for a while with the new year. And in those moments, I do sit there and think, oh, damn, I wish that I enjoyed being on this stage a little bit more, because, like, in those moments, I'm like, oh, what happens if something goes wrong and I never actually get to play on those stages again? We don't get, our popularity drops and stuff, and then suddenly we're not getting booked for these things. So there is always that kind of fear. So I think I've got a bit better with saying, actually enjoy the moment. I know when I played Teddy Rocks for the first time, that was a big thing that went through my head. That was one of those things where I said, enjoy this moment, because I was working so hard to get to that festival, to even play like the smallest of the 5 stages. And I was suddenly, bam, there I am on the main stage on the Friday night, sort of like, with East 17 on after us and the Venga Boys. I mean, it was kind of like we had a VIP trailer, and it had a care package from Vocal Zones, and they're saying, like, hey, SOS, thank you for playing, and we hope this helps JV out and stuff like that. So it was a moment where I was like, right, you need to take a second and, like, really enjoy the moment that you've got on the stage, because you have worked really hard to get here. So come on, don't and I did enjoy it, I really did. And so that's what I keep going,
as Dad would say, mentality. Pack it in.
Yeah, exactly that. So I have that mentality now of enjoy the moment, and what will be will be. And I think out of all the band now, I'm the most positive when we come off stage. But yeah, that comes with one of those things of like, I know
Good.
that I did what I can do. It is what it is. I trust the boys wholeheartedly with their ability, and I never worry about their performances because I know even if there is a bum note or mess it up, they've got it covered. You know, Josh as a drummer is just a machine. He's like a robot. He's never messed up. Touch wood. Like he just doesn't mess up. Like so, having that support structure at the back and Ash on bass as well. You know, and we're quite a fun band in a sense that if we mess up, we'll say we've messed up and kind of bring it into the set. It's not a serious kind of it's not a serious kind of like, you know, we're a musician sort of thing. We're messing around, jumping in with the crowd, with, you know, dropping stuff and whatever. So yeah, it's one of those things. Just going to enjoy it more, and I do definitely enjoy it more now.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. With, you know, it might come into you struggling with it as well, but like, how do you navigate social media, and do you find that a help or a hindrance?
So social media is one of those things whereby it's like an ever-changing landscape, which is a difficult one to kind of stay on top of. We find at the moment that with the brand change, which happened, there was a lot of hatred that came from social media, which was something that I'd never experienced before. Because I always think of it like this. If I was to see like a local band or something, there is no chance, do something, for example, there's no chance in hell that I would ever say anything to them. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if they did something stupid, I would never say it. So I think people might view us a little bit like we're at a different level than just 4 young guys that are still working and still, do you know what I mean? Because we do get these comments all the time. Like, as I say, with social media, they had a very strong social media following, mainly on like Facebook and other social medias like that, with a slightly older generation, talking like your 40s to 60s kind of pure rock metal influenced lovers. When I joined the band, happened to be the same time that they decided to do a brand change into SOS and a change of genre direction into this more mainstream kind of popular rock music, kind of like Bad Omens-y style, Bring the Horizon style. With me coming in and that change happening at the same time was like this perfect storm for these metalheads to go, he's the problem sort of thing. So social media became a little bit of a, when I first started, and even now, I think probably we maybe every week we maybe get 4 or 5 hate comments, which at this point we just laugh at them because they're so funny.
A comment's a comment. It's engagement.
Exactly,
you know,
exactly.
They're boosting you, even if they're trying to put you down. Like, it's actually helping you. Like, you know, no bad.
Precisely.
What is it, like? No press is bad press or something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, social media has now changed for us. Like, we use TikTok as our main social media, and Instagram really. Don't use Facebook anymore because our demographic has changed. With our music change, we changed the demographic, and yes, we start to get more hatred. And these people that were following the band beforehand and don't like the direction of the band, a lot of those have fallen away now. Like, that's gone. Like, that wave of distaste and stuff that came from that as we've got past that, and it's finished now. So there's still a few stragglers that just like to chime in every so often because they feel like they are owed something from us. But on the other hand, we've created this whole new community now of younger fans, mainly female fans, which we see at the gigs now is like a whole younger audience comes in, which is a much better audience for us in terms of a longevity of audience. Because those older fans are so fickle sometimes. If you to check, like, even when you see bands like, you know, Iron Maiden or something like that, that if they do something different, those fans are so fickle with it, and there's definitely this like gatekeeper community in that sense.
Yeah.
But
the ideology of what you think the band should be. Yeah. But again, like, I feel like with a younger crowd, you bring a different energy, a fresher, more positive energy, and I think as a younger generation, people are more open to change.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things. Like, back when these people that I'm talking of were younger, were sort of our age and a bit younger, like, the main music, the popular music at the time would have been your sort of traditional kind of rock and roll music or hair metal music in the 80s and stuff. So they're still hanging on to that in a sense, and they don't realise that popular music has changed, and the reason they like that music isn't because it's fringed, it's because it was popular at the time, and they've just held on to that. So we still have those influences, and if you actually break down what we do in our music and actually take a second to listen to it and not just jump to the conclusions of, oh, these are four pretty boy pop rockers kind of jumping around the
Yeah.
stage, they start to realize, oh God, you guys are actually, you're very good musicians. You play, some of the guitar solos are better than some of the guitar solos in current rock, like proper heavy rock music and stuff.
Yeah.
It just shows us, because when we recently played at the Takedown Festival in Portsmouth, there's this reviewer called Moshfield Times or something, which is a magazine, a very heavy magazine or whatever, and they reviewed the whole festival. And our review on there, the review on there was a funny one, because it was showing that this ideology that they had was kind of breaking down a little bit, because they were saying, about how we were extremely well polished, and then they would say in the next sentence, they were too polished for my old ears. And it's kind of like, what do you want? You want some sort of crap band? And then they said, and then one of the sentences was, I didn't want to like these guys, what with their pretty boy looks and their flamboyant stage antics, but they were actually really good, god damn it. And it's kind of one of these things of like, oh, you're going into this with preconceived ideas, exactly, and you wanted to dislike us, but the fact that we were actually good made you not dislike us. But it just shows like this is the fickleness of the
and
industry.
I think also for them, with an old generation, like you say, like it wasn't just their taste in music, it was what was popular at the time. But like for them, it's nostalgia, and they can't understand that you're actually now creating nostalgia for a different generation.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. I mean, our music definitely is more Y2K kind of boy band. We take a lot of influence from people like Backstreet Boys in a sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, even to the point where we're now talking of doing choreographed dances, because of the amount of people that we get saying, you guys are like a boy band. Like, the hatred. The more the hate goes up, the more we carry it on.
You rise to it,
exactly. And it's like, if you think we're a boy band, then we're going to lean into that, almost in a comedic sense, so people will just go, "Oh, these guys are funny." Yeah. It's not serious. Like, we think, like Sparky wants to get a face mic, like Britney Spears.
Yeah, or like a stool to rise up off.
Yeah, exactly, something like that, and get him with one of those, because he does run around the stage all the time, and he can't be by a microphone and stuff, and it just adds to that aesthetic of, oh, these are like a bunch of boy band, like a heavy boy band sort of thing. So
yeah.
And we're playing on these pop stages at the minute. Like, as I say, when we play Teddy Rocks, we keep getting booked for the pop stage. Like, next week we're playing, and then after us is Peter Andre, and then it's Bewitched.
Peter Andre?
Yeah, it goes us, and then Peter Andre, Bewitched, and then Dick and Dom. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is our nostalgia. Yeah. So we've got that coming up on the next weekend on Friday. So it's one of those things. It's like we're going to lean into that a little bit more. And when we met East 17, it was kind of that thing as well. Like, they're kind of that boy bandy sort of look, but we want to be a boy band that plays music more than just sings to a backing track.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and you want to be how would you call it? The opposite of washed up.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, we want to be the new one. But people that have got that nostalgia for those sorts of bands, like that late 90s nostalgia, which is kind of like our nostalgia in a sense, and that fashion's coming back, that Y2K fashion's coming back. You're seeing lots of people with their buzz cuts and their baggy jeans and stuff, and with documentaries on, what was it? They had that documentary that came on Netflix about In Sync. That's it. There's this feeling of that's coming back into the fold.
Bring it back, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even people like Simon Cowell are trying to create a boy band again. So it's like, okay, there's obviously this, if he's doing it, then there's something going on. So we've got a head start. So let's see what goes on.
Yeah, exactly. And so what are you guys, or just you, working on right now?
So we've got a lot of gigs coming up, and we're working on an album at the minute. We've just released our EP, and that was a weird one because it was kind of like a collaboration rather than, well, it wasn't a collaboration, it was kind of two worlds coming together, and now we're working on a collaborative project in a sense, because when I joined the band, they'd already had these songs ready, and they had some of the demos recorded with the old singer, and so I came in and changed up a lot of bits and bobs in the vocal side of things, in a sense, within parameters, kind of. I had the basic structure, and I had to work within these parameters, so I could change sort of melody lines and vocal lines, but I couldn't change aspects of the song necessarily. We did with some of the songs. But when I joined, I think Sparky, because Sparky is the one that was writing most of those songs, and he did write all those songs. He realised, oh, there's a different toolkit to use now. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I joined, it was like a different toolkit. There was more raspy vocals, there was screams and stuff, there was heavier directions to go in. And with that, we started creating heavier music, more modern sort of metal music, and pop, like metal music meets pop rock meets boy band sort of stuff. And so I was writing music as well, and what I found was I was starting to write for him, and he was starting to write for me, which is really good. And so what we were doing was I was coming up with an idea, like got this new song called I Drink Too Much, and I came up with the song title, the verse, and it was just on an acoustic guitar, and I'd done a little bit of production on it with synths and stuff, and sent it to him, and he was like, oh, I love this. And I was like, I'm struggling with a chorus, I can't kind of come up with a chorus idea. So he kind of remapped it into a more of an SOS song and put his spin on the guitar work with it. Obviously, he's a better guitarist than me, so he can do that sort of stuff. I give him the chords and the structure and the vocal melody lines and stuff. And then he came up with a chorus for it. And we were like, okay, we're cooking with gas now. And then we were sort of stuck with the rest of it. And I went round to his house and sat there. And we just, it was one of these things, within sort of like 15 minutes, we had the second verse, second chorus, middle eight, and then like the end of the song all sorted out, and it was ready to go. And we were like, oh god, that worked really well. And then from now, what's been happening is he'll come up with like a little idea, like a riff or something, or with a bare bones idea, send it to me, and then I'll say, okay, yeah, this is what a melody line, I've got an idea for this, blah blah blah, let's do that. And then sometimes Josh will chime in and say, oh, let's put this breakdown in here. And it's become, with me joining, it's become much less of a Sparky writes the songs and then the other band plays their parts to those songs, and more of a collaboration, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think that's really helped the whole band, because the whole band now is able to input and have more, and the songs sound better because we're not playing songs that were written previously. We're playing songs that we wrote for ourselves. And when you write for yourself, you're going to perform much better. So we've got 3 songs already that have started that are going really well. And then we've got a couple more that are working on. Again, as I say, we kind of do stuff in our own time, and then we send them to each other and come up with ideas. And it's more of a collaboration sort of thing. And then that's the idea, is to try and get an album out. We were going to try and get one out in the summer, but I think at this rate, because of what we're doing at the moment, and we've got gigs on and stuff like that, we're going to be holding off, because we want to make sure it's the best thing we can produce, because it'll be our first proper album. Because previously we've released like a 10-song EP, which is a bit long for an EP, but 4 of the songs were already out there. They were just they're just covers basically of those songs, and it was more of a collaboration. This is more of a collaboration than just sprinkles of me in there. This is definitely more of like my sort of stuff. So that's what we're working on at the minute, and just getting ourselves up together for the live gigs and stuff, and all the festivals that we've got coming up. So that's what we're working on.
Just looking after yourself.
Yeah, and boosting our profiles and stuff, and just doing what we can do to keep our heads in the game.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So now is your quick fire 3.
Okay.
Sparky wasn't very good at this because he rambles. So I'm going to ask you a question and you just have to answer it.
Okay.
Okay. First one is, what is your go-to ritual before you go onto the stage?
I always chew gum on stage. I've always chewed gum on stage. That's one of the rituals that I do. Before I go on stage, I will bubble using a straw. I've got a vocal straw that I'll bubble using in a glass. If I'm feeling a little bit groggy and throaty like I feel today, I will whack some, what's it called? That Vicks in a boiling water, and steam myself with some Vicks and boiling water, drink loads of water, and then just before we go on stage, I've got my in-ears in and I hear the backing track play, and I'll fist bump Sparky and Ash to go on stage, and then that's it. Like, there's a turn off. Like, it's two different people. As soon as I get out of that situation,
Yeah.
there's no nerves from that point. As that up to that point to the nerves, and then as soon as that backing track hits in my ears, it's almost like I just go
Go
to like
time.
a whoom. Yeah, that's it. So
Yeah.
that's my ritual, and just chewing gum and drink water.
Okay, cool. What's your favourite SOS song?
Do you want current one that's out, or do you want one that's not been written? Yeah.
Okay,
That's
current
fine.
one that's out.
Current one that's out to listen to or to play.
Oh, Joshua. Both.
Well, they're two
I
different
actually
things.
knew you were going to say that.
Did Sparky say the
But,
same thing?
okay. No, Sparky just said one. But I knew when I wrote that question down, I was like, he's going to say to listen to or to play. So first of all, to listen to.
Can I bet what Sparky said first? Did he say Living Dead?
No, he didn't.
What did he say?
What did he say? Waist down.
Waist Down. Yeah, that's good. I like that one.
And I told him that I didn't like that one.
Oh, fair.
Oh no,
I think
it's just because I can't listen to it because it's you singing about those things and I
being
just
waist
don't like
down,
it.
yeah, it's a bit creepy to be
Yeah.
fair. You should have listened to it when it had the old singer on it. It was well creepy. It's like Mickey
Yeah,
Mouse
no,
singing
I
it.
don't. Yeah, but I wouldn't have cared if it was anybody else,
No,
but
true,
it's
true,
you,
true,
so I just
true.
was like,
That's
oh,
fair
no.
enough. To listen to Mary Jane, I think that's a really underrated song. It's the most
Mine
underrated
too.
song.
That's
So
what
that
I
was
said
the
to Sparky.
And then to play, I'd probably say either Waist Down
Oh. Go on.
or Living Dead. Just because there's a break.
Okay,
The reason why
bet.
it's fun is because I like opening up the mosh pit and getting involved in it when Living Dead comes on. So that's fun.
Yeah, the last time I had to protect Mum.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just had to stand in front of her like this. And Lewis he just turned to me and just thrusted a drink towards me, and he's done that every time. Every time I've been at a concert of yours with Lewis, he just finds me and gives me his drink, and then I'm like this in front of Mum.
Bless. The trust.
Okay, last one.
Yeah.
Dream person you would love to support, or dream band you'd love to support.
I know exactly what Sparky would have said for this one as well, I reckon.
I didn't ask him this. You had
you
different
didn't?
questions.
Okay. Dream band I'd love to support. Well, I'm really into Bill Murray at the minute, so it's got to be Bill Murray. I think that'd be sick. I love Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Bill Murray probably.
You saw them, right?
Yeah, I saw them a couple of weeks ago in Bristol. But I think that's a realistic support slot as well. That's not like
Yeah.
playing the O2 kind of support slot. I think that was a realistic support slot. I think, yeah, that'd be sick.
What do you think Sparky would say?
I think he'd say the same. That or Polyphia.
Yeah.
But I think Polyphia wouldn't go down as well for us.
Yeah, I feel
Bill Murray,
like Bill Murray's a bit more cultish is the wrong word, but kind of like I can't think of it. But just I think the fan base I just think would be similar.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, when we were at Bill Murray, I got tapped on the shoulder and recognised there from this girl, and she was like, "Oh, you guys are SOS." I was like, "Yeah, do you want to come?" Because they had
cool.
flyers. I said, "Do you live in Bristol?" She said, "No, I live in London." I was like, "Do you want to come back to Bristol?" She was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "We're playing here in 2 weeks' time," which was like 2 weeks ago. And she was like, "Oh, great!" And then she turned up to the gig as well. I was like, "Oh, cool."
Oh, so good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, so no, that's cool. Yeah, so we do have some crossovers. One fan.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's all you need.
Exactly.
That's all you need. Who knows
One
who
fan
she
at
knows?
a time. Exactly, one fan at a time. That's what they say.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's all the questions that we have for today.
Lovely.
Thank you so much. Enjoy
welcome.
your band practice. I know you're going to
Thank
that
you.
now.
Yeah. Fun.
So yeah, and look after yourself for the festival season.
Thank you. I will do. You
All right.
too.
Thanks. All right, I'll speak to you soon.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you again to Josh for being on my podcast. I mean, he didn't really have a choice. It's kind of a sibling obligation. But I hope you listening enjoyed it too. And remember that new episodes of Artist Supporting Artists come out every Tuesday, so make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you don't miss an episode. Thank you, love you, bye!